My name is Arin Lindauer, and you're listening to A Life Without Struggle. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 wonderful children, a 2-time best-selling author, and a highly driven and successful entrepreneur. In my 17-plus year career as a mindset and health expert, I know what holds women back from a life you only dream about. Whether you're a CEO, a businesswoman, or executive, I started this podcast because I have been where you are, and I know you want and deserve more out of your life. I believe women are limitless. We just get lost along the way. The process to get you there is the topic and purpose of this podcast. When you understand what you want, you can truly step into a life without struggle. Welcome, and I'm so thankful you're here. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Struggle. My name is Arin Lindauer, and today we're going to talk about how perimenopause changes your identity and why no one warned you about this. So, perimenopause isn't just this hormonal shift. It's like an identity earthquake. Okay? So, you wake up one day and you realize, I don't feel like me anymore. And your labs are saying you're fine, but your life is telling you otherwise. You're a woman that you've built everything. You've built an entire life. And suddenly the woman inside of that life, she feels different. So I'm going to speak very personally from what I've personally experienced, and I'm curious how this feels to you, because this is stuff that I feel like we do not talk about enough, yet we have no shortage of women saying, oh, well, it's my hormones, or it's perimenopause, or, and I want to give you back the power of understanding why you feel how you feel, but more importantly, what you can actually do about it. So for myself, I felt very foreign in my own body, and I would look in the mirror and I was like, who is this person? And I distinctly remember staring into the mirror and I was like, man, I don't recognize this woman. And I felt overwhelmed by things that honestly, normally I wouldn't get too jazzed about. And it was and the funny thing about a lot of these symptoms, as I really think and look back on this, it just gradually kept building. And so I felt overwhelmed at the drop of just a hat, whereas before I felt like I would navigate things just a little bit easier, if that makes sense. And I really felt like I would lose my patience very quickly. I lost tolerance to things very quickly. And I just didn't have that resilience, I guess is maybe the better way to say it, that I used to have. And it just created this feeling of just not feeling like myself. And I fought these feelings so much. I was like, is this real? Is this really going on? And so I'm going to pull this all full circle. But I felt like I had no energy and I was just chasing coffee, chasing energy drinks, and this brain fog. I mean, that's another thing too, where I still feel this actually, on and off throughout the month of just not feeling as sharp. Like reasonably before you would remember things, or I can literally walk up the stairs and I'm like, what'd I come up here for? And it takes me a second. And so this then leads to just the confidence and some things that I personally felt, and it really, really rocked me right at 38, was I just didn't feel confident in clothes anymore. I kept hiding and covering up. Tony used to make fun of me with all of my cardigans. He never did in the moment, but he talks about it later. Now he was like, you wore cardigans all the time. And yeah, I was covering up anything that covered up my butt, covered up my stomach, and it was just like, I didn't realize how much I was doing that unconsciously and what I would choose, but it was also because of the weight that I had gained in this particular space. And it wasn't until we got a family photo that I was like, oh my gosh, have I really gained this much weight? And it stung. And I also remember too, every social setting, I would genuinely think like, oh yeah, I look good. And then like you look in the mirror and you're like, dude, what happened? When did this happen? When did this pooch, this belly, this muffin top, why are these jeans not fitting anymore? Right? And something else that is probably deeply personal, but I'm just going to go ahead and share on this is I absolutely felt disconnected from just the woman, the femininity of myself and the sexuality, right? Like the desire. Honestly, I didn't feel good about myself. So of course I wasn't lusting or desiring anything with Tony. And I mean, at the time I chalked it up, oh, high stress. Oh, we run a business. Oh, young kids. And I think this time and space, we can really chalk things up to make it make sense because of stress, kids, life, career, and when in reality, I was like, man, I can't believe how disconnected I was to myself. And it was just almost like survival. And I'm curious if any other women feel this way, because this is the storm that builds. For me, it was a storm that peaked when I was 38. I'm 42 now. And what I see with women now that I'm heightenedly aware is I see women just compounding, 5 years go by, another 5 years. Now it's a decade, another decade. And you don't realize what's actually changing in your body. And I absolutely had this moment like, am I going to wear a one piece for the rest of my life? Like, is that just the mom in me that this is what we do now? And I don't know, there were just so many things that I was like, man, this doesn't make sense. Here I am. I owned a gym at the time, was online, and I'm like, I coach weight loss for a living. Like what's actually going on with my body? But this is the thing that we just don't talk about in this perimenopausal phase is we're actually changing as a person. And so I'm going to speak into this a little bit deeper from a hormonal sense, but then also more importantly, what you can do about it. But I'm just curious if there's anyone else that feels like this, because it wasn't like I had a personality flaw or that I just magically changed. There was a true physiology of my body and then also my life. And so this is a compounded version of us where in our 20s, we were totally invincible. In our 30s, it's like the stress started piling and you throw in some kids, you do some major life events and it was insane what the stress did, but then also colliding then with hormones. So I want to share with you what no one has warned you about. So your doctors are not trained in women's midlife hormone transitions. Now, you may get a good one, and I'm hopeful that that is the case. But for most of our general docs, the ones that were going into their offices and were saying, I don't feel like myself, they are not trained in this. They're trained very general, and they're not trained to help you navigate these hormonal changes. And society honestly talks more about menopause, but not the 5 to 10 years before. So perimenopause is simply just the time and space prior to menopause. For some women, it's a different time. For some women, they feel this at 35. For some women, they don't feel this until 40. And so we are told, or we tell ourselves, because we're driven women, is we will just push through, okay? We'll manage our stress. We will eat less, we'll sleep more. And all impossible things that just absolutely dysregulate your hormones. Because when you're pushing through all the time, when you're just trying to balance stress and not doing a very good job of it, then you're eating less because you're trying to get those pesky pounds off your body. And you think, oh yeah, I'll just sleep some more, when in reality, you're laying there at 3, 4 in the morning, contemplating life. And so we have no shortage of things that are absolutely wrecking us in this time and space. And so we romanticize this whole female resilience, let's call it, but we don't understand the female biology. Most advice that you're getting out there on the internet from a workout, nutrition, that is for a 25-year-old body. It is not for the 40 plus crowd. So you are not failing when it comes to your weight loss, but you have been undereducated and underserved when it comes to what's right, what should you do. And there's just no shortage of fads, diets. And I hate this industry so much, yet love it because this is what I do. But it's so confusing. Do this diet, try this workout, here's an app, here's a shot. And I mean, there's just no shortage of information out there, but yet this information doesn't help you 40 plus, 50 plus, put all the pieces together when it comes to weight loss, sustainable weight loss, and then balancing your hormones. And that's why I come here to preach the good stuff. So why perimenopause disrupts your identity? Because that's what I really want to get into. Is there's nuts and bolts to this, but there is a physical shift that's happening. You don't look like you used to. You maybe had a couple kids. You maybe put on some weight. So this makes your clothes not fit the same, right? And the weight sticks in new places. The most common thing I hear is weight on the belly, weight on the thighs. Okay. And your loss of muscle tone is really a loss of confidence. At least that's what I see with most women. And then what happens is we just don't recognize ourselves in photos or mirrors. And I know I personally had both of those moments where I literally stared in the mirror and I'm like, hey girl, like what is going on? And the thing that I want to empower you is you're going to come full circle when you put the right strategy in place. But here's what emotionally is going on. Is you are going to feel more irritable. You're going to have less patience during this time. And this will all make sense when we talk about the hormones. But emotionally, your threshold just shrinks and your stress tolerance collapses in all areas, not just from a stress work life, but from stress on your body, the inflammation, how you recover, and anxiety just creeps in out of nowhere. This is a time and space where the thing that happened to me, and I get so bullish on this, is I went into every different doctor trying to figure out what was going on. I don't feel like myself. Oh, you're depressed. Oh, you have anxiety. And I'm like, well, that can't be it. You don't just put yourself on an SSRI at this point. And listen, there's no shame in the game. And I'm a huge fan of those in certain situations with, certain outcomes in mind and a plan, right? So the cognitive side of this is you feel that brain fog and then you don't feel as sharp. And then we don't feel like we can perform at the highest level that maybe we used to. And this can kill our confidence. And we feel like we're forgetful. And then this shame loop, at least for myself, I was like, what is wrong with me? Get it together. Things that I used to always remember. And, I would remember conversations that I had had years ago and could verbatim like, oh yeah, da 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 da. And I couldn't do that anymore. And you get this decision fatigue. I don't know if you guys have felt this, but it's just like, I can't make one more decision. Like, I think I had a freak out one time that was beyond a freak out that you should ever have over, I can't decide on one more meal. Between dictating what the kids eat, what the family's going to eat, I was just like, I got nothing left. I am not picking any more food. And I remember that being like a big to do when it really didn't need to be. And it was just this sense of overwhelm. Like I couldn't do everything perfect. So why do anything at all? And it was just an absolute, I felt like I was losing me. And the thing that I know happened too in this time and space is I definitely felt the changes in my husband and I's relationship. And this was a very, very challenging time and space for us. I know everyone has a version of this story, but it was no shortage of stress and building a house, selling it back to the builder, building another house, moving again. What was it? We moved two times with really, really young kids. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and we had to shut down our business I think we had to shut down for a certain amount of months. And then we ended up opening back up because we were like, this is all BS and whatever, but that's a whole nother story and for another day. But I remember our relationship between my husband and I just really being touch and go. And it was just like we almost coexisted for a hot minute. And I've talked with several other women that this has been a very challenging space because you don't feel good about you. And so, okay, if we don't feel good about ourselves, why are we going to think anything different to our spouse? And so we find ourselves in this really, really rocky place. And I know a lot of women where this absolutely tore you apart. I'm thankful that we hung in. We got some really, really, really important help that helped us really change who we are. And I actually use a lot of this help that we got in my coaching program because the mental side of this game really is everything. Yes, physiologically, we have to understand our hormones and how to support them, but there's an identity shift. I know for myself, I wanted more boundaries. I didn't want to say yes to everything anymore. And I felt very disconnected from friend groups where like normally, you want your tribe. And I was just like, I need to like disconnect. This is not me. And I craved solitude. Like all I ever wanted to do was literally go down in our basement, flip on some music, let the kids dance around and we all would hang out. And I just didn't want all the social things of our life, which, isn't wrong, but we need community. We need people in our lives. And there was also a shift in just confidence because one thing that I always felt before was sexy, strong, and confident. And I know in this time of my life, I absolutely didn't feel this. Everything felt foreign. And I felt like my body was just fighting against me. I was working out harder than I'd ever worked out. I was running. Oh my gosh. When you have what did I have? Like 30 some pounds extra on my body. And then you try to go run. Oh my gosh, it feels terrible. But we are gluttons for punishment and we do this stuff. And I later learned that was absolutely wrong. But you start losing trust in what works. This is where I hear a lot of women say to me, what I used to do stopped working. Okay. And I just don't know what works. And then when they come to me in my program, they'll say, well, what's different about this? And there's a lot because I know how to structure everything so that less is more, simple is best, but also it's always in respect that we're balancing out your hormones naturally. And so this is why my high achieving women, you feel these shifts the most because you're used to being in control. This is what I felt is I was so used to being in control of everything in my life, the success of my career, the everything looked great on paper feeling. And I was used to controlling everything. And then all of a sudden with my body, I couldn't. Like, what gives? And I know I was working harder and not getting any results at all. And you're used to understanding how to get the solution. I know for myself, I was. And so when the body just stops responding, all of a sudden we lose ourselves. And this is that identity crisis that I know I felt. And this is again where we feel embarrassed, ashamed, confused. I was so frustrated. And I was frustrated that I kept showing up in doctor after doctor after doctor's office, and everybody told me my labs were fine. But my labs weren't fine for me. And those values are so skewed when it comes to what's optimal for you personally. And so this is where this kills our confidence. It ties to our performance, and we just don't feel like it. I know for the first time in my life, I just wasn't motivated, and that's not me. I'm a very motivated person most days. And I know this is hitting deep for you because these are things that I hear from women all the time. I just happen to be in this time and space myself, and so I can intimately talk about what's going on. So I want to dig in and share with you, hey, here's what's actually going on from the science side of things. So what actually happens during this perimenopause space is we start having our estrogen fluctuate. So when our estrogen fluctuates, this impacts our mood, it impacts our energy, it impacts our metabolism. Then on top of that, you have progesterone dropping. This is where you get that anxious feeling, you're irritable, easy, those PMS type symptoms. Then another thing that's happening is your testosterone changes. And this is where we've lost muscle, we have low sex drive, and we have low motivation. I know so many women who have absolutely benefited from being on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and specifically testosterone. And so this is a really, really important one for women to look into, especially if you haven't been resistance training, because most women are under muscled. This is one of the biggest things that leads to muscle loss and leads to low sex drive, low energy, is your testosterone is too low. Now, the cool thing is you can start resistance training, you can start putting on muscle, and your testosterone can naturally go up, which is really, really cool. But I know a lot of women that would absolutely benefit from having some testosterone. Also, your cortisol elevation. So when your cortisol is raised, this was one of my biggest problems, was my cortisol was through the roof. And what happens is you get the belly fat. Okay, you're exhausted all the time. You're so inflamed. Facebook memories are so hard to see. But I see them, and my face was so, I don't want to say the word fat, but it was fat. And I was like, man, I was just puffy. I looked puffy all the time. And that I didn't even know what I didn't know about just how inflamed I was. You know, women all the time accuse me of being on a GLP-1, and I'm like, first off, I eat pretty dang good. I have resistance trained my entire life, and I wish you just looked like this taking a shot, right? And I get so frustrated with that, because actually I should probably take that as a compliment, but the thing that I know is I was just so darn inflamed. And so I've done a lot of things naturally to pull my inflammation down. The other stuff that happens to us is the sleep disruption. Holy moly, this just makes everything worse. And if you want to balance your hormones naturally, you have to focus on getting better sleep. Now, we cannot put insane pressure on this, because the more you tell yourself, oh, I need to sleep, well, guess what? You're not going to sleep. And so this is where I share with women, don't be a night owl. It does not serve you. Don't stay up having another glass of wine. Don't stay up eating and munching on all the things. That Netflix show or whatever show y'all tell me you watch, I don't watch anything. And I pride myself in literally going to bed after we put the kids to bed. And it has been the biggest game changer for me. I purchased this Aura ring, it's probably been 4 years ago. And it has been one of the most helpful things for me to see my quality of sleep. And I've been able to string together, okay, hot shower, sauna, cold plunge. What else do I do? We keep our home colder, which I hate, but it actually does promote better sleep. We have a sound machine. We have blackout shades. I listen to hypnotic tracks, all in respect to sleep better, let alone I take a couple things at nighttime that are non-habit forming, just over-the-counter supplements that absolutely help me with sleep. And so these are things that I'm here to tell you. If women would simply focus on getting better sleep most nights. Now, even myself, the other night, I had terrible sleep, and my God, I felt it the whole day. Also, working out will help you sleep better. Walking, being more active will help you sleep better. The other thing that happens too is shifts in your gut. Your gut microbiome can get disrupted. This is where a lot of women complain about bloating, cravings, having sensitivities. And there's a lot of things we can do naturally from our food. And you would think some of these things are obvious, but some of them aren't. I mean, some of it's just simply drinking our sparkling sodas, our sparkling waters, our Diet Cokes. Those make you so bloated. Any of our like artificial, not artificial, but like your gluten-free products, those I see disrupt GI more than if the woman just would have gluten, right? And so it's staying away from our more packaged, processed types of foods. And it's manipulating your carbs. I've seen that help women tenfold with it, and making your carbs come from real food. So like your fruits, your veggies, complex carbohydrates. Those are things that I see women do really, really well with their gut. And sometimes your gut needs help. Sometimes you need a good probiotic, a prebiotic potentially. There's really cool testing that you can do for your gut microbiome. And then you can get custom probiotics based on this. And it's relatively inexpensive for how it's actually going to make you feel. The other thing that we can do is drink things like kombucha. That's something that I personally do, and it absolutely helps with your gut microbiome. So your identity feels off because your hormones are changing. That is real. And your nervous system is reacting to the compounding effect of your life, stress, hard times, work, career, young kids, older kids, there's just no shortage of things that are going on. So, okay, how do we reclaim our identity here in perimenopause? And so this is where I want you to really take some notes here, is strength rebuilds your identity. Nothing gives a woman more confidence than muscle. When your body feels powerful, you feel powerful. Most women are under-muscled. And if there's one thing I want women to take away from me is, yes, I'm probably that crazy workout chick, but this is so important. If you want your body to change, you have to lift appropriately heavier weights. If you've been doing the 10s for a while, it is time to try 12 to 15. If you've been maybe only goblet squatting, maybe it's time to consider using a leg press or putting a bar on your back or a belt squat machine. If you have only been benching with dumbbells, maybe it's time to get under the bar. Like if you're doing 20-pound dumbbells on your bench, it is time for you to go grab a 45-pound bar and with a spotter, test it out, see what you can do. Because you don't know what you don't know when it comes to strength training. But this is where I will tell you, every woman asks me, hey, Arin, how do I get the tone and definition like you have? And I'm like, this is lifting. Now, not crazy. And this is where I don't want everybody running to the gym and getting themselves hurt. But there's appropriate ways that you program and then put together progressive overload so that you see the adaptations to the muscle. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Nobody wants to hear this, but it takes day after day after day, after month, after year to build muscle. So this is a lifelong journey, but I'm here to tell you, you can see some really cool absolutely cool changes in 6 months, but give yourself a good year to 2 years to truly see your body just completely change. Also, your nutrition has to support your hormones. You cannot keep going through drive-thrus. You can't have all these convenience foods. You got to cook food too. And so this is where we focus on the protein. I know this is not earth-shattering, but it's amazing how many women still underconsume protein. And we need to balance your blood sugar. Ditch the chronic undereating. Now, here's the deal. You have to understand what your calories are. So for myself personally, on a good day, I will burn 21 to 2200 calories. On some pretty normal days, I burn somewhere between 17 and 1900 calories. That's not a ton of calories. So if we're in a 500 calorie deficit, okay, great. We're going to move the needle when I'm more active. But there's a Goldilocks zone to this. So I have manipulated calories myself personally, even down to the 1200 calorie range. Now, P.S., I am 5'2", 5'3" on a good day. So if you're 5'6" and taller, these numbers are not for you. But what I want you to understand is you have to create a deficit, but it cannot be too low. And if you're over consuming, or let's just say you're cool Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday, you kind of go off the rails, guess what? You're starting back over every flipping week. And listen, I did that. I did that multiple times. I would see all this weight loss on the scale. I'd get to Friday and I'm all proud of myself. And then all hell would break loose and Arin would eat and drink all the things. I have been there. The other thing that we have to really talk about is the nervous system. This has probably been one of the biggest things for myself personally, is getting my nervous system absolutely regulated. I used to sit on the couch at the end of the night and my skin would crawl thinking about the next day. Did I say this to this person right? Should I have done this? What about that? I mean, no shortage. And so a lot of this came from my mental programming of learning to let things go, learning to almost have a neutral, like, of course, everything's okay because my intent is in the right place. But this comes back to good sleep, resting your body, not working out every single day. I was guilty. I would work out literally every day. Setting boundaries around work, boundaries around commitments. I will not overcommit us. I won't overcommit our kids. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in running kids all over creation. And I get it, right? Like, you get your kids and things and it's a good thing, but not if it's disrupting the entire family, okay? Not if it's running you ragged. It is not worth it. They will not be upset because you didn't let them be in brownies. I'm just saying. My mom said that to me when I was a little girl. She said, "We don't have time for brownies." And I'm like, okay, and I'm fine. I'm only bringing it up 42 years later. Just kidding. Okay, hopefully you're laughing. But it's overall figuring out ways to reduce your stress. This is something that I talk with women all the time. They'll tell me how stressed they are. Now, our stress is a perception of our reality. Okay, we create the stress. Stress is not actually real. And that one always, ruffles a few feathers when I say it. But stress is just our response, how we react. So the cool thing is you are in control. And so what I have learned is we have to really rewire ourselves, and we have to rewire ourselves and then create this ultimate self-trust. I'm already who I want to be. This is just who I am now. And we take action even when our motivation is low. You don't have to feel like it. That's one thing I've learned. When it comes to certain things, you don't have to feel like it. You just do it and guess what? Move on. And this is where your identity has to have stacking of habits. The woman I am, or I am a woman who, and then insert whatever principle. I am a woman who eats well. I am a woman who moves her body appropriately. I am a woman who sticks to the plan. So I hope this is hitting home, because this is some of the bigger stuff that I help women do. And I will tell you, Other things that have really, really helped me is sauna, cold plunge. Absolutely has helped me. If you don't have access to these, take a hot shower, hot bath, and then dial back your shower to cold. Try to stay under there. And more importantly, try to regulate your nervous system. So your breathing. So when you're in the cold, especially, you have to learn to control yourself, to go into your breath work. And that's what's going to show you how in control of your body you are. When I get in the cold plunge, even to this day, it takes my breath away. I want to get out immediately. But the coolest thing I have learned about this, in about 15 to 30 seconds, I've absolutely calmed myself right back down. For now, it takes me to 30 seconds if I'm pretty amped, if I've got a lot on my mind. But for most days, it's that 15 to 20 seconds of, and I can really get control of my body. And that's what I want to empower you listening is, hey, you're in more control than you realize. And you got to surround yourself with a tribe of women who are doing this kind of work. You know, I have created a group environment in my coaching program. You can opt to have a private experience with me, but I really enjoy when women realize that you're not alone and you can interact. And man, when a woman says something, you're like, dude, me too. I feel that way too. You know, it's one thing to relate to me, but it's another thing to relate to other women along this journey. And so I want to help give you hope that perimenopause isn't the end of your identity. It's the upgrade. So if you can think about this, it's the upgrade, okay? This isn't your downfall. This is your true turning point where you take control of your body. You're not losing yourself. You're meeting the next version of you. It's pretty cool. So perimenopause isn't a problem to fix. It's an invitation for you to evolve as the woman that you want to become. This is the powerful work that I do with women in my coaching program. So when this episode hits home, it's because you're in this season of life. And the season doesn't require suffering. It requires the right strategy. So first and foremost, what I do with women is step one, we're going to reset your foundation, balance your hormones naturally. Step two is this gets you ready then for step two, which is rapid fat loss, or we call it recompositioning your body. Step three is health optimization. And this is the new woman. This is who do you want to become on this journey. This is way more than nutrition, way more than just workouts. This is an identity shift. This is mental programming. This is, hey girl, we don't have to struggle. You can have more good days than bad, okay? Like I will tell you 99% of my days are pretty good. Do I have challenges? Of course I do. But for most of my days, I can let things roll off a lot easier, but it's when you feel good in your own skin. It's amazing what your body does for you. So DM me the word ready. You can hit me up on any social medias when you're saying, hey, enough is enough, because this is where we build a sexy, strong, confident version of you. Let's do this.